You guys ready for one more camera comparison video? I have the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. I have the Galaxy Z Fold 6. We're going to take a bunch of pictures from both of these phones. And I'm going to compare them and tell you what I think. Like I've been doing, let's start with the boring ones and get them out of the way. This is with the selfie camera on the cover display of the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. You can see the phone in question over here on the right-hand side, and we've looked at this on two other videos already. It's fine. It's a selfie camera. The details are good. The colors are relatively natural. On the Z Fold 6, it did punch in a little bit further by default. Now you can press a button and actually zoom it out, and I just did not even notice that when I was taking it. I think it's still fine though. It's a detailed picture, and really the colors are fairly similar. Although I'd say that on the Pixel, my skin tone is probably more accurate. It's got a bit more pink going on there. Whereas this does look a little bit kind of yellow-brownish. So I would definitely say the Pixel is more accurate. Going to portrait mode, most of that's going to stay the same. You can see it actually does a pretty good job cutting around my hair this time. Very, very slight error up there, but that's actually pretty good this time. On the Z Fold, it does similarly, maybe a little bit more erroneous there, but that color tone is still more yellow than I think is accurate. And now using the cover display to use the primary camera, we are out of order. This is the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, and then this is the Z Fold 6. The bokeh is definitely being handled differently. Actually, some of my face is being bokeh out just a little bit, and I think that that's kind of a little bit weird. I don't normally see this kind of thing from Samsung's camera, but in this instance, when I was taking the photos, the Z Fold did do a little bit of some strangeness there with the blur. So we'll do one more portrait shot just to give the Z Fold sort of a fair shake at this. This is the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, and it does a pretty good job. And if we zoom in and look around at her ears, and even on her back here, you can see how the focus is gently falling off. For the Pixel, I think that the colors are quite natural and quite accurate. The lighting is not great here, so the detail is not like really through the roof, but I think it did a pretty good job. The Z Fold has a very similar level of detail, maybe a little bit more noise and grain. The biggest thing I've noticed though is that the color temperature is completely different. She is much more orangish reddish than she actually is, but it did do a good job with the bokeh as well, maybe even a more shallow depth of field than the Pixel did. So I don't think by and large you're going to see a huge problem from Samsung with the bokeh, the focus fall off, maybe just a bad example there. So we're going to be talking about the primary sensor next, and I'm just going to kind of answer this comment before it actually arrives. I know you're going to ask, why did you not use the full resolution 50 megapixel mode? And the answer is that most people just shoot in the automatic mode. That is the answer number one. Answer number two is I actually think that the automatic mode gives you the best all-around picture. Shooting with the Pixel binning tends to give you the best photo. Now, you may not be able to pinch to zoom in quite as far, but you do tend, in my mind, to get the better shot that way. And also, I have to just stop somewhere, right? Like, I can't test every possible configuration. There's manual modes, all this stuff. So we're just using auto mode on both of these, and it is what it is. So using the automatic mode on the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, we have Spider-Man. Let's zoom in and see what kind of detail we were able to resolve. Looks quite good. Bokeh sort of falling off, the focus, I should say, falling off over here. I think that these colors look pretty accurate to me. Nothing about this seems too out there. If I go to the Z Fold, there is a very distinct difference. This is certainly a warmer image, and maybe, am I crazy? Does this look more saturated in general? Does he look redder in this photo? I'm not sure. There's definitely more grain back here as well. Look around this area here. Does that look like there's a bit more noise and grain? Maybe just a little bit. Maybe just a little bit more noise and grain. Definitely a different color temperature. I don't hate either picture, but I do think Samsung's looks a bit noisier, and it's definitely warmer. I'm not going to nitpick this one too deeply. You can just kind of look at it for yourself, but this is the Pixel, and then this is the Samsung photo. You're going to see this a lot. The Samsung photo is just going to look warmer. You're going to see a similar level of detail, but definitely warmer temperatures. Even though the Pixel itself is shooting warmer in my experience than it used to, Samsung is still much warmer than that. You'll see that again in this image where both photos seem to do a pretty good job handling the exposure of this lamp, but look at how much darker we are over here. Look at how much more saturated this guitar looks and how much warmer the wood looks as well. Samsung is definitely going with a particular stylistic choice. I don't necessarily hate it, but it is different. We'll zoom in on the Samsung photo and get a good look at how much detail we have on the strings, on the fretboard, and we'll do the same thing on the Pixel. Things do look very, very similar. Stepping outside, taking a photo of the tree. This is what we had from the Pixel. The sky looks very natural. Really, all of these colors look fairly accurate and natural. Samsung does, as always, punch things up just a little bit. You have a bluer sky. Here's something I need to look at. Around the leaves, do you see how there's almost like a haloing effect happening where it's a little bit lighter here versus in the actual, like the rest of the sky? Is the Pixel guilty of the same? No, not really. And I think that that is a side effect of Samsung kind of punching the colors up a little bit. Let's punch into some leaves and get a good look at the level of detail, and we'll zoom back out. Not a radical difference there. Biggest thing I'm seeing is just how much greener the leaves look. So let's take a look at some low light shots, and yes, there is an Australian Shepherd hare that has floated into the shot, and it's actually going to kind of come in handy here in just a minute. So the Pixel, I think, has these colors pretty close to correct. We all know what a Pokeball is supposed to look like. If we switch over to the Z Fold shot, the Pokeball definitely changes colors, and it's very, very vibrant. It's a very bright, kind of crazy looking red, but it's the wrong shade of red. This Australian Shepherd hare has almost disappeared, and we definitely have a little bit of loss of detail back in this corner. You can actually see the pattern still in the background, and here you absolutely cannot. Sticking with low light, but now what I've done is I've introduced a little LED light that gives sort of a purplish hue, and I wanted to see how both of these would handle that. What we have here from the Pixel is what you can see. I think it's trying to still get these colors accurate, and it pretty well accomplishes that. You can see some of that purple hue from the LED hitting Snorlax in this image. If we go to the Z Fold, it is being washed, bathed in that sort of purple hue, and again we have a similar loss of detail. The colors have gone a little bit squirrely. So now we are using the ultra wide, and let's take a look at what kind of detail we have in the middle. This is probably the weakest lens on the Pixel 9 Pro Fold. I appreciate that it's a bit wider than it used to be, wider FOV, but the detail is not great. Color seems to be fairly consistent though, so that's not too bad. If we switch to the Z Fold, man, that is a very different looking photo in terms of the color temperature. And I'm immediately seeing a lot of grain over here to the right hand side. So let's switch back and we'll zoom in on the Pixel. And I'm not getting me wrong, it's still a noisy, grainy photo, but Samsung is handling this much, much worse. So I'm going to say that that's a problem for Samsung, continues to be the noise that I'm seeing. Stepping outside into some better lighting, and these two do look very, very similar. There's not a whole lot for me to nitpick here, guys. They look fine, but I'm going to tell you the Samsung's going to struggle a bit in low light. Now, one thing you can do with the Pixel that the Z Fold cannot do in terms of the ultra-wide is using it as a macro lens. So on the Pixel, you can get up very, very close to a subject like this and still be able to get it in focus with the Z Fold 6. This is about as close as you are able to get, so that's something to keep in mind. Next up, we are talking about zoom, and what we have here is the Pixel zoomed into 3x. Now keep in mind, at 3x, this is a digital zoom because this has a 5x optical zoom. So anything up to 5, you are using your primary sensor and trying to just crop in. And because of that, I would suspect that the Z Fold is going to have an easy victory here. This is not a particularly great photo. The lighting's not great in that corner, and it is very, very blurry. If we jump to the Z Fold 6, well, what do we have? A much cleaner image. Although I will say it's not a great image, it's definitely better. Now what we're going to do is go to the 5x lens on the Pixel, which has cleaned things up a lot, and detail is a lot better. Again, lighting's not great, not super detailed. Certainly better than the 3x was, though. And now on the Samsung, we're taking that 3x lens and we're pushing it up to 5x to try to match things, and we definitely have a far worse looking picture. The colors are going wild. This has turned into like a pinkish fuchsia color, and the detail is certainly not great. And that's kind of what I expect for you to see, is that at low level zooms, right? So 2, 3, 4x, Samsung's going to win. But anything 5x and up, I expect the Pixel to win. So it's one of those things where you kind of have to determine which way you want to go with that. Like, what zoom is more important to you? Let's take a look at a couple more zoom photos, though. So again, this is a 3x digital zoom on the Pixel, and it looks about how you would expect. It's not particularly impressive. If we jump over to the Z Fold, where it is an optical zoom, things do look much brighter, much clearer, and much more detailed, but we do need to push things further to that 5x point. Doing that with the Pixel, if we zoom in, you should be able to see that we have pretty darn good details. Again, the colors look fairly natural, but surprisingly for me, in good lighting, your Z Fold holds up very, very well. In fact, you might prefer this picture. I'm not sure how well this will come through, but I do think that the Pixel is slightly more detailed, in particular areas like the bark of this crepe myrtle. But if you told me you liked how bright and colorful that image was, I wouldn't fault you for it. Take a look at that bark there for that comparison. Again, I think more detail here, but definitely no shame for this photo from the Z Fold. I don't know how often you're going to actually use it, but both of these phones can actually push their zoom up to 30x. So let's take a look at a couple of photos doing that. This is your Pixel shot. It is surprisingly sharp and detailed for 30x. And this is your Z Fold shot, definitely beginning to struggle at those advanced zoom levels. So we are shooting 4K 30 FPS on both devices. As I switch back and forth between the two, pay attention to the audio quality, but also the exposure, the color, the detail, and the stabilization. We'll walk up real close to this fence. You get an idea about how well both of those can focus up close. As usual, let me know in the comments down below which one you think is doing a better job. So between these two cameras, I think I can sum things up relatively succinctly. The Pixel is going to give you photos that have a lot of contrast. They are going to be slightly warmer than Pixel photos used to be. They're going to be very solid when it comes to noise and low light scenarios. When it comes to Samsung, you're still pretty doggone consistent, but the colors are punchier. They are potentially slightly oversaturated. Of course, nothing like they used to be back in the, older days of Samsung, but they're definitely like warmer and more saturated than what we have here with the Pixel. If you like that vibe, you're going to really enjoy this camera. But overall, for me, I think I got to lean towards the Pixel. So guys, thanks for watching. Let me know what you thought about these in the comments down below. This stuff is subjective. It's photography. You're going to like what you're going to like. So let me know what you think in those comments. I'll see you on the next one. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.